Okay, moving to our topic, evolution. So here what are we doing is we are considering that there are a group of 12 red beetles. Let's assume that they live in bushes where there are green leaves. Now what will happen? The population will grow. How? This population will grow by sexual reproduction. Obviously, whenever sexual reproduction is taking place, it will introduce variations. So let us imagine that a crow comes and eat these beetles. So I'm writing BB for beetles. A crow comes and eat these beetles. The more beetles are eaten up by the crow, the fewer are left for reproduction, right? If more got consumed every time, fewer are left for reproduction. Now, what will happen? Obviously, when this population is undergoing reproduction, it will introduce variations. Now, in the first situation, we are discussing cases now. What will happen if the reproduction is taking place? In first situation, a colored variation appeared. What is that, a color variation? That one beetle is green in color instead of red. These all were red, right? So one beetle, it's green in color. This is color variation we are talking about. In all the red beetles, progeny of red beetles. Now, moreover, what will happen? Since it is green in color and undergoing sexual reproduction, it will pass on this to its progeny. And all the following progeny beetles are green in color. This crow cannot see these green colored beetles in the normally progeny of red beetles. So these green ones are not spotted by the beetle, by the crow. So these ones survived. And crow cannot eat them. These ones are the ones which are picked by the crow. Now what will happen? What is expected? The progeny of green beetle which is not eaten and the progeny of red beetle which is eaten will automatically result in a change as more and more green beetles are produced, and the green beetles will automatically dominate the red ones in progeny. Okay, this is the first case. Now moving to the second case. In the second situation, again, if a color variation arises due to reproduction, now again a color variation. But this time this color variation is blue instead of red. Now the original beetles along with a blue one. I have already written it a B1. These were red in color. So a color variation. I am writing a color variation that has come. This is blue one. Crows can see blue color variation or a blue color beetle in the progeny along with the red one. Since these blue colored beetles in the green leaves of the bushes can be seen as the red ones are spotted, therefore can eat them as well. These could be equally picked up as these ones are picked up. So initially the population as expands, there are few beetles which are of blue color, right? Because in the beginning there are only one or two, then later on these grew and then 4 to 5 and then the number increases. Initially these are very few. But when the crow comes and picks them up in equal number, their proportion or their ratio remains the same as that of red one. But at this point, a twist occurs. An elephant comes and stamped on the bushes where the beetles live. And it kills most of the beetles. It kills the beetles. But which ones? By chance, a few that have survived are blue. Rest all got stamped by the elephant's foot. The survived ones are blue in color. Then it is obvious that it started out as a rare variation, came out to be a common characteristic in the population. Means whenever the green beetles were there in the progeny, first this green color, this red beetles in the progeny, the green color came out as a rare variation, blue color came out as a rare variation, but both got selected. How? These two obviously came up as a common characteristic in the population. This due to its color is not picked up by the crow, and this one when the elephant stamped over. So this is the survival advantage. Clear? Here it is the naturally selected predation by the crow, and here it is accidental survival. But the frequency of inherited trait changed over generations. Means genes which control the traits, frequency of those certain genes in a population, it changed over variation. This is evolution, that we cannot expect only the red ones to flourish and remain red in color only. It came out as a progeny of green as well as blue. May it be selected by nature as the crow picked up the red ones, and may it be the survival advantage when the elephant stamped over the bushes. So this is the essence of evolution. Then we say there are interesting differences and facts too. In the two situations, in the first case, this one case, the variation became a common one. Why? Because it gave us a survival advantage. That's what I just talked about, survival advantage. In other words, we say it is natural selection. Okay, we can see that this natural selection here is exerted by the crows when they used to come and pick up the beetles. The more crows there are, the more red beetles would be eaten up, and the more proportion of green in the population would be. This natural selection is directing evolution, and this is a straightaway indication of survival advantage, which is shown in natural selection. Now here in the second situation, the color change gave no survival advantage. Blue was equally picked up by the crow, but it is simply a matter of accidental survival. What is it? It is accidental survival. And this accidental survival is all because of the characteristic of the elephant's foot, when the elephant came and stamped over. And this elephant would not have caused such a major havoc in the beetle population. It would not have been so large. So accidents in small populations can change the frequency of some genes in population, even if they do not give any survival advantage. There is no survival advantage. This survival is only the accidental survival. It's not an advantage. So this is the notion of genetic drift. This is not natural selection. This is genetic drift. Now, got the difference between natural selection and genetic drift? It gives survival advantage. It is an accidental survival but no survival advantage. And now coming to the third situation. The third situation says population, when it begins to expand, the bush starts to suffering from a plant disease. There is a plant disease, right? And the amount of leaf material is reduced. Supposingly this was the earlier leaf area which is reduced to this one now. Beetles have to survive on this area. This one is cut off, not available. Obviously, what will happen? The beetles are poorly nourished. Clear? The average weight of the adult beetle will decrease from what it used to be when the leaves were plentiful. So what will happen? Its weight will decrease. And ultimately, there is no genetic change which will occur, mind you, because this change is not in the germ cells. So no genetic change. It's just a somatic change. And after a few years, a few beetles of such scarcity, when the plant disease will be eliminated, there will be lot of food to eat. What is expected afterwards? Right now, the weight is decreased because of this plant disease. After years, after maybe 1 or 2 years, what will happen? If the disease, plant disease is eliminated, we expect these same poorly nourished beetle to gain weight. Why so? Because now they get almost the entire leaf area which is eliminated of this plant disease, and they are well nourished. Here these are poorly nourished, so there is a decrease in the weight. It's not a genetic change. Alright, when the plant disease is eliminated, these beetles will gain weight. Fine. So this leads us towards the second concept of our topic, that is acquired and inherited trait. We have heard a lot, but what is the basic difference between acquired and inherited trait? Here we say that germ cells, which play an important role. We are quite clear about the germ cells. Germ cells of sexually reproducing populations are made in specialized reproductive tissue. Okay. And if the weight of the beetle is reduced, that is here, because of starvation, because of disease, because of poorly nourished, that will not change the DNA of germ cells. That will not change the DNA of germ cells. Therefore, low weight is not a trait that can be inherited by the germ cells or by the progeny of the starving beetle. Even if some generations are low in weight because of starvation, that is not an example of evolution. We will not consider it an example of evolution. It is not going to help us in evolution, no way. Why? Because it is bringing no change in the DNA of germ cells. Since the change is not inherited over generations, so change in non-reproductive tissues cannot be passed on to the DNA of the germ cell. Okay? And the experience of an individual during its lifetime cannot be passed to its progeny. Supposingly, someone met with an accident and has lost his limb, will not pass on to its children. Okay? So, same way, remember we always talk about that if we breed a group of mice, all their progeny will have tails as expected, and if the tails of these mice are removed by surgery in each generation, tail removed, again removed, again removed, again removed. But this is not going to give us tailless mice at the end. The answer is no, and it makes sense because removal of the tail cannot change the genes of the germ cells of the mice. When there is a change in the germ cells, then only a trait is inherited. If it is not a change in the germ cells, the trait is not inherited. Alright. From here, we have come to the third example, that acquired trait, that is weight loss and weight gain, will not be a characteristic example of evolution. But yes, the initial ones, the natural selection as well as the genetic drift, are the two basic examples of evolution.